Hello, welcome. My name is Mia, and today I wanted to talk about a movie that I saw a couple of years ago. I found it on the deepest, darkest depths of Amazon Prime. And this movie, it's just, there's something about it. It's always had a place in my heart. And I think other people need to know this movie if you do not already. Can you guess what the movie's about? It's about vampires. But it's not just that. It's also a musical. It's kind of like High School Musical mixed with Fright Night, if you know what Fright Night is. And not only that, it's got two people from High School Musical in it. We've got Ryan from High School Musical, and we've got Drew Seeley, who sang for Troy Bolton in the first movie. Yeah, so this movie's it's stacked. This movie is very stacked, if I'd say. But yeah, let's get to it. The vampire. So, the movie starts off with our main character Dylan having a nightmare. And in this nightmare, he's dreaming about vampires, and we get a glimpse into kind of, I guess he is the main antagonist of this film. Drew Seeley's character, whose name is Trey Sylvania. He's a vampire. Dylan wakes up from this dream, and he's like, what the crap's going on? So he decides to go to a psychologist. Dylan tells us the story of how he got bitten, and he says that there was this exchange student who came to his school, and ever since she gave him a hickey, he's been having weird symptoms. He's growing fangs, he's suddenly wearing eyeliner, but he finds this doctor online and has been taking pills to help with these symptoms. Dylan's therapist asks him if he has told his girlfriend about what's happening to him yet. And through another flashback, we see them on a date to an amusement park. They're laughing, they're dancing, they're having fun, and then they get in the photo booth, and Dylan almost bites her on her neck. So he runs away, afraid that he'll hurt Sarah, and she thinks that he's rejecting her. So she decides to sing a song about it. I never felt before. Actually, unironically bop to this song. So we're back at Dylan's house, and he feels bad about leaving Sarah. He's conflicted. He doesn't know what to do. So he calls his therapist, and he's rambling to her about how he can't get her out of his head. We finally get introduced to our main antagonist, Trey Sylvania. And this interaction's a little weird.
What? How the hell did you get in here? Come on, dude, I fly!
Trey decides that he's gonna be Dylan's wingman and help him out with his Sarah situation. But his advice is to Then Sarah knocks on Dylan's door. The vampire baddie's gotta hide. She knocks on his door, and she finds that Trey is in his room, and she's like, who's this guy? And he's like, oh, this is Sarah? So Trey puts a hex or a spell on Sarah, and he convinces Sarah to go to his vampire club. We arrive at Trey's vampire club, and they get some drinks, they talk to some people. Trey's kind of like this playboy vampire, so he's surrounded by a bunch of vampire girls. And And Dylan tries to convince Sarah to leave, but she's under Trey's spell, so she's not listening to him. And she thinks that Dylan doesn't actually like her. So Dylan tries to kiss Sarah, but he ends up almost biting her and rejects her again. And Sarah, she's had enough. She's fed up with it. But then we get another song, and this is my favorite one. Trey's biting Sarah, and Dylan's like, we gotta get out of here. Once you become a vampire, you become emo. And now Dylan's on another date with Sarah, and she looks different. She's got some eyeliner on, she's wearing a leather jacket, and she's also putting way too much ketchup on a hamburger. We get another song where Sarah's like, I just wanna bite people. Unlike Dylan, she doesn't really care. She's like, I just want the taste of blood. I'm bloodthirsty. I'm hungry. This entire time, Dylan has not told her that he's turning into a vampire or that she's turning into a vampire until she tries to bite this poor civilian. And seemingly, she's really unfazed for learning that she's turning into a vampire. Me personally, well, I would have at least thought it was cool. Trey's becoming a bigger problem too now, because Sarah can hear him in her head, and she can also see him in her dreams. So they decide to try and find a cure.
I've got the remedy. I've got the remedy.
He is Dr. Dan Helsing. They find Dr. Dan's laboratory, and he's a little weird.
Those things are fresh. He must have some strong mojo. Okay. I'm tightening.
Here we go.
I'm pushing.
But he agrees to help them, trying to find a cure. Things start to escalate. Sarah collapses to the ground. She's like, Trey's in my head. We learn that Trey's bite has a very strong strain of vampire, and it's causing Sarah to turn faster than Dylan, where the vampire who bit him had a weak strain. So we get another little song. Sarah's flailing around the lab. Dr. Dan figures out that the only way that he could come up with a cure is if they get a sample of Trey's blood. Now that they know that they need Trey's blood for the antidote, they need to figure out where he is. So they call his name 3 times like Beetlejuice, and he appears.
Trey Sylvania. Trey Sylvania. Trey Sylvania. Trey Sylvania. Okay, good. Here's the first time.
And he takes them to his vampire mansion, where we get introduced to more vampire baddies, and this one's Jamaican.
Desiree Damned. Woo, man, she's so bad. But she thinks she's Jamaican.
She thinks she is.
Jamaican me thirsty.
We also meet Trey's, number 1 vampire. I guess she's the head vampire girl. Vampire baddie. She doesn't like Sarah because Trey is giving all his attention to her. Dylan and Sarah are trying to come up with a plan to get Trey's blood, but it's not working out for them because they keep bickering and they're getting nowhere. But then the head vampire baddie snatches Sarah away to try and make amends with her. They do a makeover on Sarah, and she becomes a shiny new vampire. But she's just in black clothes now, and she has blue streaks in her hair. While this is happening, Trey takes Dylan and he locks him in a room with the Jamaican vampire. And she's really into Dylan. And Dylan's just he's just confused. He's like, this is weird. Dylan leaves the room, but Sarah is outside of the room, and she catches him with the Jamaican vampire. And she thinks that Dylan is cheating on her. But Dylan doesn't try to explain himself. He just lets her assume. And she runs away, and she sings a song with Trey. And she disappears with Trey. And Dylan's like, where the hell is Sarah? We gotta get her back. Somehow Dr. Dan gets to Trey's castle.
You didn't think I'd miss getting close to a real vampire.
And the four of them sing a song. Obviously, there's some more dancing. Why are they out of breath? Listen, I know they were dancing, but did they really go that hard?
Yeah, you got the powers.
I think you're right.
Dylan now has the power to teleport himself. So he teleports himself and Dr. Dan, and they find Sarah in one of Trey's rooms in his humongous castle. Sarah can't remember who Dylan is. And Trey's like, haha, she's mine now. She's no longer...
Or Sarah Lane.
And Sarah's like, wait, I remember who I am. They finally have a sample of Trey's blood. They run away, but I mean, they're in Trey's castles, so they don't really know where to go.
Where are we going?
Dr. Dan makes the cure. They drink the cure and they are looking for the way out. But once they reach the door, they find Trey is waiting there for them. And then Dr. Dan gets attacked. He might be dead. And now, Dylan has become a full vampire. And he's got powers like this. They have a little showdown. Or, I should say, stare down. Trey thinks he's kind of cool. He's like, you know what? You've actually become the vampire that I knew you could be all along. We don't have to fight.
Yeah, and if it's not killer yet, it soon will be.
Sarah and Dylan are both stuck being vampires. And oh hey, Dr. Dan's alive.
Dr. Dan, why do we still have fangs?
The serum is experimental, so it may take a while to kick in.
They're both vampires and they're okay with that. They live happily ever after because they realize that even though they'll live an eternity, they'll have each other. Aww. Dylan visits his therapist one last time, but he brings Sarah. And I guess they know they're in a musical because she says this.
About that other issue, this tendency to spontaneously burst into song and dance to express your feelings.
Which, I guess this was alluded to the two other times where Dylan said something like this. But yeah, that's the end. Everyone lives happily ever after, and they end with a big musical number. And it kind of sounds like it kind of sounds gospel a little bit. It's giving some gospel vampire vibes. Honestly, I think this is better than Twilight. Unfortunately, this movie is no longer on Amazon Prime, but it is on Tubi because that's where all of the good movies are. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider subscribing. Yeah. Okay, bye. Your best friend is bloodthirsty, just a little bit nipple, just a little bit tickle.